My name is Larry Wood. I was born and raised here in Cairo, and I enjoyed sports and were into music when we were growing up. And my mom and dad were teachers in the school system here. My mom taught at the grade school, and my dad was a science teacher at Sumner High School. And then later on, as integration came in, he was a science teacher at the Cairo High School. Well, when in my younger years, up until the sixth grade, they were separated. Then in 67, 68 is when the integration was, and they merged to Cairo High School.
Okay, prior to them merging, where were the black schools?
Sumner High School was the black school. It was located on between 22nd and 23rd Street, Poplar. And we also had other schools. It was a Washington Grade School and Garrison. Those were the black schools. And then we had St. Joseph and Lincoln School were the schools that had the predominantly white kids in it. We all played, well, the blacks played with the blacks and the whites played with the blacks when we were coming up. But it was, we just had fun. You know, as kids back then, you just found different things to do to enjoy your time. Well, I had an older brother who graduated, and my sister both graduated from Sumner High School. He graduated in 1960, and my sister graduated in '64. Coming up, we played ball. Well, you know, back then, whatever sport was in season, that's what you played. But as I got around 13 or 14, I got interested in music, and I wanted to play music. We had a local band called the Soul Phonics back then, and we practiced in the basement. We started off at the school, but that was around the time that grant money was funny, and you know, arts are the first things that get cut in a lot of times in the system. So we didn't have a music department, so we ended up practicing and learning how to play like that. Mostly self-taught musicians. It was something we liked to do, and we took on, and it was older people. We weren't good. You know, as kids, you know, you think you're kind of good and you're playing, but it was a lot of people. Elmer McPherson and Blanton Bondred and Shaney Irish, they were older, Thomas Burris. They kept encouraging us to come on. We played like little house parties and stuff, and it was a club called the Pythian Club that was at 13th and Commercial. Some of the older men, my brother was our manager, but he also was a member of the Pythian Club, and they would just let us come in and play, and we played, you know, a half hour, 45 minutes and something. But that exposure kind of made us keep going. It kept our confidence up, even though we weren't even good. Back then, we didn't even know how to tune our guitars and stuff. We just played, you know. Yeah. Over time, we got better at things, you know, got to take classes here and there. Back in the days when you used to march and stuff, and a lot of that stuff generated, to me, seems like out of Ward Chapel Church, which happens to be a church that Pastor Ronnie Woods he and I grew up in that church, but some of the ideas and things came from the pastor, Reverend Ramsey at that time, and then he and Reverend Charles Coyne became friends, and I think he kind of helped mentor Reverend Coyne, and one thing led to another, and that's where the marches came, and then downtown was segregated. Wasn't many blacks working in the stores down there, so they instituted a boycott and stuff to help try to get blacks to be able to work in some of these stores. To me, some of the things that kind of stick out is the fact that we learned to see what the problem was. Like, until then, I'm not gonna say we were innocent kids, but like I say, we stayed in our area and played, so the white kids stayed in the area and played, and we never got a chance to come together. But once you saw how things really were, you saw a level of hatred that it was kind of hard to deal with it for a while. And to some extent, we still experience some of that today, especially in some of our sports. Our kids see different things, and when people say, oh, you're from Cairo, they automatically assume, there's certain things that they automatically assume, that you gotta be in trouble, you not this, you not wanna do this, but but it's totally, really not that. That's why I like the fact that they let me do the things I do around in school here now, because we get the opportunity to try to change some of the narrative. That sometimes you know, it still gets tough. I see these kids, especially on the court, and I relate a lot of it to basketball. Our kids play, and they play hard. They get along with others, but you can tell by the way games are refereed, or that a lot of the tension is still there, and that's why I say that's why we're trying to change the narrative. Cairo has a tough reputation. Being an independent school, it's hard to get games, especially home games, and that's because of things that happened in the past. You know, we've had times where, you know, it's been fights here and there. Sometimes at games, just in general in the town. Our kids that are participating in sports aren't those kids, you know. And it can be frustrating at times, but we're working at it. It wasn't bad for me. Nobody bothered me. We had our own little group, and I guess, I don't know, my release ended up being playing music. I played sports too. I played, you know, basketball and baseball. And we had, you know, back then, so by then our teams were integrated. And the guys that were on the team, we all got along. In the older generations, in the older times, grown people had their area, younger people had their area, you know, like clubs. My dad, that age group, they had their own place. They go, teachers and all that. You didn't get to interact with them as much as people do nowadays. Back in those times, the older crowd, they went to a place they call it 4th Street, and it's a place there now, they still call it that, but now it's different. And they also had the Cavalier Club and the Pythian Club for the older generation. Then the younger people had the 3-2 Club. Ward Chapel, for the history, to me, Ward Chapel played a big part, but we got a chance to see how some white people felt about blacks. Up until then, we didn't see it, because, you know, we stayed in our area and they stayed in their area. But after a while, it just got out of hand. I think it was a guy that allegedly hung himself in the jail here. He was home on leave, and then that's what triggered the start of the movement. From that incident, yeah, and one thing kind of led to another, and then that's when the marches came and the protests. Because back in older times, most of the women, a lot of women didn't work, black or white. You know, the men made the livelihood and you know, brought what they say, bring home the bacon. They didn't have to, and that's for the women stayed home, nurtured the kids, took care of the kids, and made sure the food was prepared, and the men went and worked. But there were, you know, different types of jobs. And me, for instance, I was blessed enough that both of my parents were able to go to school and ended up being teachers. So I had a different outlook on things and a different perspective. There was a lot of things that other families went through that I didn't have to go through, and my mom and dad tried to make sure that didn't take place. From times back then to now, to me, it was a lot more to do. By being more people here, Cairo was a place where everybody came. On weekends, the big thing back then, you know, go shopping, you go here. Instead of going to Cape and Paducah, Cairo was that place that they came and shopped and spent their money and did things. The marching and the riots came about where people started finding other places. And that's one thing that has led to what Cairo looks like now. But even though it took a long time for us to get to this point, that's one thing that led to it. I'm hoping, as a future of Cairo, that we can finally get the port going and get some more housing in so people can come and want to come back to Cairo. Because a lot of the people that had to move when they tore the projects down, they really didn't want to leave Cairo. But they had no choice because there was no place to stay. You know, as other towns, you know, Chicago experienced it, Paducah experienced it, where they tore down public housing, but it didn't affect them because they still had other places within that town where they could still move and still stay there. But Cairo was one of the places where they had no choice but to leave town. It affected the school, the population of the school, the size of the school. We've always had a really good basketball program, which Coach Baldwin and Coach Ronnie Woods are aware of. We were really known for our basketball and still kind of known, but our level of play has dropped because a lot of those athletes, when we toured the project, they left. It's starting to come back now. We've had times where at our varsity level basketball, at the high school level, we've only had 10 or 11 kids to go out for a team. So you don't have a JV, you don't have this, and you don't have that, and then you, on top of it, you don't have teams that want to come here and play you. That makes it tough. But our kids are seeing how they can help make a difference, and they're trying to. With some of the kids that are here now, if their parents can stick it out, they can be the ones that help turn some things around to help make things better. Our basketball program is on the rise again, and I think with our middle school kids that are coming up, that'll help a lot. Well, they used to say, Cairo, Illinois, love it or leave it. and a lot of people, you know, come back. You know, I appreciate the things that you all are trying to do, because what you're trying to do help shed a light on some of the things we have gone through and some of the things that we want to go through. I hope for our kids, the kids that are in Cairo that want to stick and be in Cairo, get a chance to do the things they want to do, go to school, better themselves and raise their families and do good things and be positive role models.